What is up, guys? It is the Sound Alchemist, and welcome back to another 40 Facts episode. In today's video, we will be taking you to a few renditions of what artists believe that the Primarchs would be looking like. Is that good English? I don't know. Basically, we're going to be looking at some artwork into the Primarchs of the Horus heresy, as well as the Primarchs that have been released now in the 40k era. Basically, Mortarion, Magnus, and Guilliman. So with that being said, I will put links to the two artists who we're going to see their Primarch portraits, so to speak. That way you can check out all their art on their DeviantArt page or their ArtStation page, as well as I will put the link to the Forge World page so that if you want to go ahead and purchase your own Primarchs, boom, there you have it. So without further ado, let's begin looking into these awesome artworks. They shall be my sons, and in them will live the hopes of a unified humanity. Theirs will be the strength to prevail, not only when victory lies within easy reach, but even when it seems unattainable. When doom settles like a shroud all about, in those times of darkness, my noble sons will shine the brightest of all. The Emperor of Mankind. Now, the way in which we're going to cover each Primarch is based on the order that the Emperor found them. Now, I'm not 100% sure if this is 100% confirmed. There might have been some retconning going on, or maybe some books contradict other books. However, this is the order that we're going to go in. And beginning with everybody's favorite Primarch, let's start with Horus. Horus was the favorite of the Emperor, and he was the Primarch to the Luna Wolves. Unfortunately for him, he became a Chaos worshipper, and he began the Horus heresy. Now he has since passed on, being slain by the Emperor himself, and this is his portrait. So when it comes to the rendition that we have here for Horus, you can see that in most of his artwork, he's a bald character. He doesn't really have any defining characteristics about himself. Like, it's not like he's missing an eye, or he's got like a scar across his face or anything like that. However, it was known that Horus was very charismatic, and because of that, he could easily sway the hearts of many, and that's one way how Chaos used his charisma to sway the hearts of Space Marines and fellow Primarchs towards the dark side. Even after his descent into darkness and chaos, as you can see here, his rendition is pretty much the same. He just got a little bit more chaotic looking in his armor, but his face didn't really change. It's not like he has glowing red eyes or anything like that. Maybe if he lived on past the heresy and if he became a demon prince, then he would change. But as we see him here, as he fought the Emperor, his demeanor was pretty much that of the same old Horus that we knew pre-Chaos. Leman Russ, the Wolf King, is the Primarch of the Space Wolves chapter of Space Marines. He was a very brutal and ruthless Primarch who later became known as the Emperor's lapdog. It is rumored that he was the one responsible for enacting the Edict of Obliteration, or at least following through with it, and eliminating one or both of the Lost Legions. Now, in both the Forge World model and in this image that we see here, Leman Russ has blonde hair, which, whenever I think of Leman Russ, I think of a more grizzled man, more like this picture here, where he's got red flowing hair, he's got that long beard, and overall just a more brutal demeanor. In my opinion, he would be best played as Tormund from Game of Thrones. I think that would be a perfect person in real life to kind of show you what Leman Russ would have been. If there was like a live action movie or TV show going on about the Primarchs, I think he would fit the bill just perfectly. The next Primarch that would be discovered would have been one of the lost Primarchs. However, we have no idea what the second Primarch actually looked like or what he had to do. There's many rumors surrounding this, but again, there's no definitive answer. So because of this, let's move on to Ferrus Manus. Ferrus Manus was known as the Gorgon, and he was the Primarch of the Iron Hand Space Marine Legion. He was a master smith who was known to create weapons that would not only be powerful on the battlefield, but could also inspire anybody within them to know that such craftsmanship could be possible. A defining feature for him isn't on his face, but more so upon his arms. His hands were kinda infused with necrodermis during a battle between a creature of such metal and fighting in a volcano, I believe. Because of this, it makes him even more badass. However, his life was taken from him. He was best buddies with Fulgrim, and unfortunately Fulgrim bested him in combat and ended up beheading him. So the images you see here of him all are pretty badass. They usually show him wielding his famed Warhammer. However, he's now been deceased, so the chances of him getting a new model in 40k or coming back in one way or another are pretty much zero. However, GW has been known to change things, so maybe he will be getting a model, but as it stands now, Ferrus Manus is deceased. And would you look at that, the next Primarch to have been discovered was actually the best friend to Ferrus Manus, and it is none other than Fulgrim. So Fulgrim, as we all know, is the Primarch who is all about the Emperor's children. He was all about perfection, all about attaining the best of who he can become, and unfortunately that led him towards chaos. He ended up killing his best friend in combat. He was also possessed by a demon who possessed his body for a time. However, I think as of right now he has forced the demon out of his body, but demonhood has now taken a hold of him. He had a demon, he lost it, and now he's become a demon prince who may or may not be coming out soon in the 40k timeline. There's a whole bunch of rumors swirling about this. However, Fulgrim, I don't know, I just can't wait to see him. It's rumored that he's got a serpentine body, 4 arms, and that's just badass. Because currently we have Mortarion and Magnus the Red as models in 40k, but to see perfection incarnate as a demon prince, that would be really awesome. However, I really do like his sculpt in the Forged World Heresy, the Horus Heresy model line. It just looks really badass, and it's like very dynamic posing. So hopefully they bring something similar to that into the 40k timeline. The next Primarch to be discovered is Vulkan. Now Vulkan is the Primarch of the Salamander's Legion, and they're all about flame, plasma weaponry, or actually melta weaponry, and overall just craftsmanship. He was known to be a powerful superhuman warrior who towered above all the other Primarchs. So because of that, he was the strongest of them all. And as you can see his demeanor here, he is very intimidating. He's got red eyes, which is very, very piercing, and he's got pitch black skin because of his homeworld being Nocturne. Now Nocturne has tons of volcanoes, and because of that you have like soot and just smog everywhere, and because of that they being the Space Marines as well as Vulkan all got that kind of genetic mutation throughout the years. Now since Vulkan happens to be a perpetual, it's very likely that he will come out in 40k when that's that can be any time really. However, just the sculpts for this guy is really amazing. I've got a buddy who plays salamanders, and he's got a conversion of this sculpt, and it just looks amazing. And all the images you see here of what he looks like just looks really intimidating. So all in all, we have Vulkan, the perpetual mutant of the salamanders. Next up, we have one of Gershwin's favorite Primarchs, and that is Rogal Dorn, the Vigilant, the Praetorian of Terra, the Unyielding One, and all in all, the Primarch of the Imperial Fists. So Dorn, again, he's like one of those Primarchs who I often overlook, because there's nothing really special about him. It's like, rumor has it he died fighting on a Chaos flagship, and the only thing that was recovered from him was his hand. So maybe he is dead, maybe he's not dead, maybe he had to retreat and cutting off his hand was the only option. However, I do like his model for Forge World. It shows him like in a very stoic stance, and it just looks pretty badass. The renditions that you see here for the artists, I feel like it's nothing special. Again, he's just a regular, in my opinion, he's just like bland. Just a regular run-of-the-mill old Primarch. So, with that being said, let's continue on. And speaking of generic-looking Primarchs, we have Roboute Guilliman, aka Roboute Guilliman. So Guilliman, he looks like a Roman, like, Emperor, Julius Caesar, Russell Crowe. He's just there. Although he is the poster boy to GW, since they tend to focus on Ultramarines a lot, so I'll give them that. And because of that, he has his Forge World sculpt, which it's okay. And he's the only Loyalist Primarch to have been released for the 40k timeline. Which, when it came out, I really enjoyed the sculpt. I thought it was really dynamic. Just overall, really liked the pose. He's got the flaming sword. The armor looks cool. But the more I look at it now, I feel like the proportions are a little off. But still, pretty cool sculpt nonetheless. So yeah, pretty bland, pretty okay. Let's move on. Now, if you thought the previous two Primarchs were pretty bland, there is no way you can think that of this next one. We are talking about none other than the Gorgon, the Cyclops, the psychically powerful Magnus the Red, the Primarch of the Thousand Suns Legion. So he is a really awesome character. His lore is super rich and dynamic. He's always been an interesting character that usually gets blamed for everything, but in my opinion, Magnus did nothing wrong. His art is always awesome. I always like the crazy flair that these artists have with him. As you can see in this image by Nicholas G.R. Condino. Again, all the artists are going to be in the description below. I really enjoy the way that he's just focusing on his characteristics. Again, it's just like you could see like the lightning, the details and such, and it just looks amazing. And then when we flip it over to the other artist, you could see how more realistic it is. But again, you also have like the Gorgon part kind of more popping out here with his only single eye being open. And overall, it's just really great. I really enjoy the shift in dynamics when he became a demon prince, as you can see in the 40k model here. I'm not saying the Forge World one is bad at all. I love it. I really like the whole psychic power being shown in the Forge World one, but he just looks so much more menacing in his demon prince form, which I really hope they keep it going with those demon princes, because the direction they have for it is just amazing. So again, in my opinion, out of the 40k sculpts, Magnus is definitely the best sculpt so far. If you think otherwise, let me know in the comments, but for now, let's continue on. Next up, you have my favorite Primarch, Sanguinius, aka the Great Angel, and the Primarch to the Blood Angels Legion. Unfortunately for him, he has passed. He was killed by his best friend, which is none other than Horus, the Warmaster. And Sanguinius is so awesome, so instrumental in the lore, that all in all, like, I can't wait to see what Forge World does with him. It is known that he was probably one of the most beautifulest Primarchs. Maybe it was Fulgrim, maybe it was him, but I just can't wait to see his angelic form come out into the Forge World Horus Heresy series. Honestly, I know he's coming out next, so I can't wait to see him. Hopefully they reveal him soon, but just to give you a little bit of a hint of how awesome he was, let me tell you what Horus has said about him. Sanguinius, it should have been him. He has the vision and strength to carry us to victory, and also the wisdom to rule once victory is won. For all his aloof coolness, he alone has the Emperor's soul within his blood. Each of us Primarchs carries part of our father within us, whether it's his hunger for battle, his psychic talent, or his determination to succeed. Sanguinius holds it all. It should have been his. Lionel Johnson, Primarch of the 1st Legion, the Space Marines known as the Dark Angels. So Lionel Johnson, he's got a pretty interesting past with like Caliban and Knights and fighting with Lorgar, not Lorgar, Logar. And all in all, he's a pretty cool looking guy. Again, I feel like he falls on like the blander side of the whole Space Marine Primarch, what they look like. But all in all, he's pretty cool. I mean, he's got Cypher carrying around his blade. Maybe it'll be more prevalent into the lore. And maybe, because again, there's rumors flying all over the place that maybe he'll be the next Loyalist Primarch to come out and join Guilliman. But we'll just have to wait and see. All in all, just let me know what you guys think about the portraits you see here for him. Do you think these best describe what your mental image of the lion was? If not, let me know what other images are. So let's continue on. The Lord of Iron, the Breaker, the Hammer of Olympia, Perturabo, the Primarch of the Iron Warriors. Now, Perturabo is one of the few Primarchs who actually dons Terminator armor, and I think that's really badass. In the lore, he's not really my favorite Primarch, but model-wise, he's always looked very intimidating. He created his own Terminator armor himself, and as you can see, it's a conglomeration of just weapons on weapons on weapons. It really gives me the vibe of like a more beefed-up War Machine from like the Iron Man series from Marvel, and he's just pretty cool looking. Although his face, he's an ugly dude. But like the Terminator armor kind of hides his ugliness in badassery. Again, let me know what you think about his armor, and just to let you guys know, he single-handedly took down a Titan, if I remember correctly. So again, Perturabo, aka badass. The Pale King, the Death Lord, the Prince of Decay, aka Mortarion. So Mortarion is the Primarch of the Death Guard Space Marine Legions, and he also happens to currently be a Demon Prince of Nurgle. So because of that, he's actually come out into the 40k timeline, and he's got a pretty cool looking sculpt. I actually had the pleasure of fighting Mortarion on the battlefield with my Blood Angels, and let's just say this Primarch is a beast in combat. It took a combined might of a Sanguinary Guard, a Captain, and a 5-man Terminator squad to take him out, but he managed to do some big damage against me. When it comes to his portrait, he's always one that's pretty cool. He's got that shroud over his face, he's got that breathing mechanism, he looks really badass, and overall, just very demonic looking, very sickly looking, and it's further incorporated into his artwork because many of it shows him wielding his legendary scythe. So again, really awesome character, really awesome drawings. Now let's continue on. The next Primarch is none other than Lorgar. Lorgar Aurelion, aka the Urizen, is a pretty, when I first heard about him, he didn't interest me at all. His lore seemed pretty weak, but the more I actually paid attention to it, this guy is badass. We've got a 4-part lore onto Lorgar, and I greatly recommend you check out those 40 fact videos. And he's just overall misunderstood, I think it's best put. He managed to take out a Demon Prince, he took out an avatar of Cain, he actually stood up to Horus, and all in all, he's been meditating currently in the 40k timeline, just ready to come out and just F things up. So much so that I really like his design. His design for the Horus Heresy, his armor just looks really badass, and I was really close to using him as my stand-in for my own personal fan Legion Primarch, but I had to hold back because even though his armor is really cool, I really liked another Primarch's design, which I'll get to later. But yeah, Lorgar is really badass. As you can see in the images, you can see how crazy he is, or how devout he is, based on what your perception of him is, as he's got all these markings on his face. And yeah, it's just pretty cool. Go watch the 40 facts on him. The next Primarch up is none other than Jaghatai Khan. Jaghatai Khan is one of the Primarchs that I feel is the most overlooked by GW. Not much lore is on him. Like, you don't really see them pushing the White Scars Legion to like get new things. But I think his design is really cool. He's one of those Primarchs that is very distinct. You see him and you instantly know, boom, that's Jaghatai Khan. That's the Great Khan. That is the Primarch of the White Scars. And again, he's one of the few Primarchs that doesn't have a sculpt yet for the Horus Heresy. So I really want to see that. I'm also really interested to see him come into the fray, into the 40k universe, to see his bikes in action, because he's a very hard-hitting Legion, I guess the White Scars is as a whole, and I really want to see their playstyle more so on the battlefield, and seeing a Primarch lead like an all-bike army would be really badass. The next Primarch is Batman, or the 40k version of Batman. Konrad Curze, the Night Hunter, the Primarch of the Chaos Space Marine Legion known as the Night Lords. His artwork is phenomenal. The one you see here just really showcases fear, dread, and I really enjoy it. You could really see how like sunken his eyes look, and just how intimidating Konrad Curze would be, especially knowing that he's like a superhuman giant that can easily just crush your skull in the palm of his hand. He's just really awesome. I really enjoy his lore. I really like how he's hates his legion, because they ended up being all like murderers and prisoners turned space marine. So he detests his legion. He's being plagued by visions of future events that the Emperor is letting happen. So he's seeing like thousands of humans and people and just things in general just crumble, all because of the Emperor. And he knows this, and the Emperor knows that he knows this, and yet nothing is being done. So let me know if you think that Konrad Curze is like the anti-hero in the Primarchs. Because whenever you think Konrad Curze, you think of like, oh, hands down, he's chaos. He's only doing this for himself. But I think there's a hidden motive there. And I think that the assassin sent to kill him didn't actually kill him. He's just biding his time to make his move. The next Primarch up is the Angry One, the Red Angel, Angron, Primarch of the World Eaters Traitor Legion. So basically, this guy is all about Khorne, but he has a reason to be all about Khorne, and that's kind of the Emperor to blame. He was very devout to his fellow gladiators on his homeworld, and they were trying to do an insurrection. However, when they were about to get slaughtered by the ruling elite of the planet, the Emperor came in and pretty much just teleported him to safety, and he had no choice but to watch his comrades, his friends, die at the hands of their basically slave owners. It's a really sad backstory to Angron. And all that kind of just fuels his hatred towards the Imperium, towards the Emperor, and that's why things got kind of out of hand with him. You could really see the anger, the hatred in the images here. It shows him kind of growling, yelling, just ready to pounce into combat and just shed blood everywhere. And nowadays, he's actually become a demon prince. So his anger has actually used as fuel to both his armies and the armies of Khorne. So again, the images you see here really showcase how badass Angron is. And even the model just shows carnage all around him. So I can't wait to see what they'll do with his sculpt when he finally makes his move into the current timeline. And the last loyalist Primarch that we talk about today is Corvus Corax, the Liberator, the Deliverer, the Raven Lord, the Chooser of the Slain, and the Shadow Lord. So Corax is the Primarch of the Raven Guard, and he's similar looking to that of the Night Haunter, but not as intimidating. He's been known to liberate humans that have been held captives, since he himself was a captive, so he kind of knows what it's like to be oppressed, and because of that, he's fighting for freedom. He's also got a very interesting trait that makes him invisible to others, which is really, really badass, because usually you've got perpetuals, or you got people that are good at psychic abilities that are Primarchs, but this guy can turn invisible. So I don't know, I feel like he's just a really badass character that I feel more people should look into the Raven Guard because of. I feel like they need more love, more support. So here's to Corvus Corax coming back into the 40k universe. And the last Primarch that was discovered by the Emperor, or perhaps it was the first, it is Alpharius / Omegon. Secrecy is what surrounds this Primarch or Primarchs. They are known as the Hydra, the threefold serpent, the final configuration, and the last Primarch. So basically when the Emperor created this Primarch of the Alpha Legion, it was apparently known that he created twins. So because of this, Alpharius and Omegon are like two people, but they act as one. Rogal Dorn, I believe, fought against one of them, maybe even killed one. However, it's maybe Guilliman was the one that killed one of the two Primarchs. But the thing about these guys is that you don't know who's who, you don't know what's going on. They're not as tall as Primarchs. I think they're the same size as regular Space Marines, so because of that they could easily blend into their own legion, have stand-ins, and there's just so much secrecy, so much suspicion and mystery into not only the Primarch but also their legion that we don't know what's what. So the images you see here are just, it could be any Space Marine really, but they look pretty badass nonetheless. So with that being said, that brings us to the end of this video. If you guys like the images you see here, be sure to go down to the description and check out the DeviantArt as well as the ArtStation pages for these two artists. I've been really enjoying their artwork for a long time now, and I just thought this video would be a good time to kind of showcase all the Primarchs and kind of give you a little bit more insight as to what not just ourselves as viewers but as artists think that the Primarchs look like. There's been official art of Primarchs, but I think it's always better to kind of dive into people's psyche and kind of see what their art showcases. Because you could say, oh, this is what Guilliman looks like, but maybe that's not what you thought, and you're putting in your own opinions, your own experiences of that Primarch into your own, and then boom, that's where you get this awesome piece of art. So again guys, check them out. Be sure to head on over to the Forge World website if you do wish to purchase these awesome sculpts. And here's to hoping that this year we finally get yet another Primarch into the current 40k timeline. I'm really hoping we get a Loyalist, but at the same time, I kind of want another Demon Prince. So let's see what GW decides to do. And also let me know down below in the comments what was your favorite piece of artwork from these Primarchs that you saw in this video. Can't wait to read your comments, and that's all I've got for you today. As always, I'm the Sound Alchemist, part of One Mind Syndicate, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.